Okay. Let's see if this will work here, okay? All right, I'm streaming. Okay, this is Chuck Holton here, and I'm trying a different setup to stream this time. So if you are online, good afternoon, Sonia. Tell me if you can hear me, please. I see a heart. Let's see how this works. It's working from West Virginia. Okay, good. All right. So, how you doing? Chuck Holton here, and I want to tell you a little bit about what's happening in Panama. Good morning, everybody. You might not have heard, but there's a tremendous amount of civil unrest happening down in Panama, where I live. I've lived in Panama for about 10 years, a little over 10 years, and before that lived there for another year back in 2007. We love Panama, we love the people, we love the culture, we love the language, we love the environment is really nice. No winter, that's good. So we moved to Panama because it was a safe, peaceful, tranquil place, low taxes. I could save a lot of money, so we had a lot of good reasons for moving down there. Of course, no place is perfect, and I didn't expect it to be. But in the last couple of years since COVID, we've been really concerned by what we're seeing in Panama. COVID especially. Hi, Betty. Thank you. I'm glad you can hear me. Great. That's great. I've been very concerned about what I'm seeing take place in Panama as like COVID. For example, they had essentially just house arrest. It was horrific. I'm in Israel. I'm in Jerusalem. There's an Israeli flag behind me, and the reason I'm in Jerusalem is to cover the war. But I also, on my channel, try to cover as much as I can about other things that are happening, crises around the world. So if you come to my channel, you're going to hear more about lots of stuff that's going on in the world than I can put on the CBN channel, and you're also going to hear more of my opinion about those things. And I should be able to, with fewer people online, I should be able to interact with you more, unless you name yourself Z91514, and then I don't know what to call you. So hang on a second. The other cool thing about this is, besides it being interactive, is that I can say, hang on a second, I got to get a drink of water. Can't do that when I'm online with CBN. Hang on. Okay, there's your 12-second live look at downtown Jerusalem. I also wanted to point out, since I've got so many people here, and it's daytime, I usually don't get to do live hits in the daytime. I am only doing them at night. I'm going to make that wider. You can see the old city of Jerusalem right over here. So let's see if I can make this work. This is going to be interesting. We'll turn this camera around over that way. Pass my light and look over there. You can see that wall right there is the wall. Won't quite focus. Anyway, that's the wall. That's the wall of the old city of Jerusalem, and that is the Armenian church. And right between that church and that tower, you will find the upper room where Christ had the Last Supper. That's pretty cool. Anyway, kind of fun to be here in Jerusalem. Unfortunately, it's under not the greatest conditions, right? But if I show up, there's probably a war on. That's the way it goes. All right, so I wanted to talk about what's going on in Panama. Like I said, I've been living in Panama for about 10 years, and we love it. We love the people. Panama is a great place to live, and normally it's very, very safe. But right now, the whole country is essentially just paralyzed. I was talking about one of the things that concerned us about Panama was the reaction that they had to COVID. It was essentially house arrest. You had to stay at home. You could not leave your house. You couldn't even go for a walk. You could not leave your property, except for one person in your house. This was their plan. One person in your house can leave your property one time a week for 1 hour and go to the grocery store and get groceries. But even in the grocery store, they had sections like blocked off. If it wasn't actually groceries, then you couldn't you couldn't buy it, even though it was right there in the grocery store. So if your faucet of your kitchen sink was spouting water all over the place and you needed a new O-ring or something for that, too bad. It's not groceries. Can't buy it. It started out saying that it would be for 15 days. And I actually was kind of excited about that because it was like a forced vacation. But a forced vacation turned into a month, and then it turned into 2 months. And fortunately, thank God, I have a beautiful house, a large house in Panama on an acre of land or so. And I had my family there, my kids, and I even had a buddy that kind of got stuck there for the entire time we were locked down. We gamed the system just like everybody else did, and we went out and everybody in the house took their 1 hour per week to go to the store because that's the only place you could go, just to get out of the house, just to do something, which was a wonderful. I mean, Panama didn't think of that, and everybody got COVID from each other at the grocery store. It was the only place you could go, so it didn't really matter that we were all locked down. Now, that lockdown, you would think after a month they would say, okay, all right, you can go for a walk. It's, when you're out in the sun, if you're not close to other people, you're not going to get sick. You're not going to make anybody else sick. So get out, get some sun. It's healthy. It helps your immune system to get some fresh air. I mean, imagine the people in Panama who are stuck in a high-rise condo. I have a friend who has 4 kids, and he was stuck in like a 750-foot condo on the 14th floor, and he was thinking very hard about jumping off his balcony. Even worse than that, there are a lot of poor people in Panama who are, they live in like a tin shack with no yard, nothing. They no air conditioning. They couldn't go outside. Well, this didn't go on for a month. It didn't go on for 2 months. It went on for 10 and a half months. And after 10 weeks or so, I just bailed. I couldn't take it anymore. My son is a personal trainer, and we had a gym in Panama in our little town downtown, but the day before they locked everything down, we kind of saw it coming, and so we went down and cleaned out the gym, closed and locked the doors, brought everything home and set it up in our carport. So we had the whole gym there. So I told Joey, it's your job to get me in the best shape of my life. And he said, welcome to hell. And wow, did we work out during that 10 weeks or so that we were stuck at home. After that, I called the U.S. Embassy and said, this is ridiculous. And they said, well, we're laying on a humanitarian flight back to the States to get American citizens out. And I said, sold, get me on that. So long story short, we went back to the States, went to our farm in West Virginia. Everything was normal. Nobody wore masks. People wandered around. Well, I say nobody. Very few people wore masks in West Virginia because we're mountaineers and we just don't care, America. So there's that. And you know what? Fewer people got sick and died in West Virginia, I would say, per capita than they did in Panama. I can't, I haven't looked up the actual numbers, but I would venture to say that. It seemed like it. As it turns out, it's just super unhealthy to lock people in their homes for 10 and a half months. But anyway, so that gave me a little pause when it came to Panama. Well, now I'm pausing a little bit more. I've still loved Panama, still love living there, don't plan on leaving, but I'm very disappointed because this is now the second time this has happened. There's a copper mine in Panama that is owned by a Canadian company, the nice North Americans, and it's way, way out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, this mine, you would have to drive at probably 2 hours on a 4x4 road to get out there. Now, they may have improved the road since the last time I went that way, but it was in bad shape, and maybe it's better. Maybe you can get there in an hour now, but it's 30 miles from the nearest town, most likely, as the crow flies, in any direction. And it's in pristine tropical rainforest out in the middle of nowhere. And they found copper and a bunch of minerals that you need for things like your cell phone and lithium and stuff like that. So they found that, and they purchased the rights to mine it, and they've been mining it, and they directly or indirectly now employ about 40,000 people in Panama. So it's a large mine. When you go out there, it's a big open pit mine. They cut down the forest and cut off the tops of the mountain just like they do in West Virginia, and they're mining that copper out of there. Well, there are two groups of people who are very unhappy about that. One group of people are the labor unions in Panama, because at first, yes, I'm in Israel, I'm just reporting on Panama, because this is my channel, and so anyway. So I just wanted to okay, so I was talking about labor unions. Labor unions, from what I understand, they had the contract, it was unionized labor out there at the mine, and then the mine workers themselves decided to form their own union, which then took all those dues for like 9,000 people away from the main labor union in Panama, which is called Suntrax. Now, I was a stockbroker for 10 years, and I came to despise labor unions, because if you're investing in a company that's unionized, the union's job is to get as much stuff as they can for their people. I get it. Get as many concessions to make their job as good as possible, right? Well, in so doing, they typically over time end up sucking that company dry until there's nothing left and the company goes under. We've seen it with American steel companies, especially. We've seen it with hospitals. We've seen it with where there's been companies that got to the point where their pension overhang. They had to provide a lifetime pension for everybody who retired, and the union, demanded a pension for them, and that they retire at like 50 or whatever. And they got to the point where they had far more people that were drawing a pension retired than they had actually working for the company. And it just, they couldn't take it anymore, and they just, so labor unions eventually will destroy any company. Suntrax, for its part, is essentially a bunch of communists that are always mad about something. And ever since we've lived in Panama, when you hear Suntrax, you hear something about protests. Suntrax is the protest king of Panama. And it doesn't matter what it is, they're always mad and they're always protesting. So the way that they protest, their favorite method is not to go to the president's palace and have a sit-in, or go to the actual company that they're protesting against and blockade that company or something, or picket outside the company or anything like that. No, Their favorite method of protest is to terrorize the entire population of Panama by walking out in the middle of the street and closing the roads. Now, traffic, anybody that's been to Panama knows that the traffic is ridiculously bad. Like, if you want to stay alive on the roads in Panama, you pretty much have to drive like you're trying to get arrested. And so it's already so bad, and SunTrax just loves to make it worse. So they go out and they block the roads, and they call that a peaceful protest. Now, I would submit that standing in the middle of the road and blocking traffic is not peaceful. That's actually violent. It's the same kind of violence as kidnapping, because you're taking the life, you're stealing life from me. If you block the road and I'm stuck there for 7 hours because I can't get to work or get home from work or get wherever I need to go, you are essentially unlawfully detaining me. And that's the same as stealing a portion of my life. That's stealing from me. You're stealing my time, the most valuable thing that I have. Now, in Panama culture, Panamanians don't value time. Time really means nothing to Panamanians, maybe because, the average wage is pretty low and whatever, but just it's part of Panama culture. If you go to the grocery store, for example, and there's chicken in a packet that's already cut up and wrapped and sealed, you can just grab it and go. Or there's chicken behind the counter that you have to wait for the guy, and he's got to come get it and put it on the thing and chop it into pieces and then weigh it and then print off a little sticker and all that kind of stuff. It takes a lot longer. But if that chicken that's packaged is 5 cents more expensive per pound than that chicken that you have to wait for, those people will wait for hours, literally hours. They'll take a number and they will sit there and they will wait on their chicken for hours to save 5 cents. I have seen people, oh, hey, thank you. Good morning from Lancaster. Thank you for supporting me. That's super kind of you. $19.99 on a super chat. You can super chat as well if you like. If you'd like to support my work, you have to understand, Chuck Holton is a freelance war correspondent, crisis correspondent. I go to crisis and disasters around the world and report for essentially whoever will pay me. And I will discuss Israel on CBN News Channel today. That's correct. I will. I'm doing daily live updates over at CBN News. I am not talking about Israel right now because I'm talking about the crisis that's going on in Panama. So Panamanians just don't care much about time, and so they really don't get too upset if somebody stops traffic and they get stuck in traffic for hours. They just go like, in one way it's really refreshing because you don't have road rage in Panama like you do in the States. I guarantee you if they tried that in Texas, somebody'd be getting shot or run over, right? But in Panama, people just go, if somebody cuts you off in traffic, you go, and that's it. You don't race up there or try to, shoot them or anything. You just go, I'll get you next time, And that's kind of nice, but at the same time, unfortunately, SunTrax feels the need to block traffic a lot. And so you actually have to plan your movements now in the city around these stupid protests. And I don't have anything to do with whatever SunTrax is mad about today. I'm just a guy trying to get to the airport. Thank you. I look forward to coming back to El Paso. Thank you for that super chat. I appreciate it. I'm just a guy trying to get to the airport or whatever, and now I got to wait in this traffic jam for 5 hours, and it's a lot like if you had a fight with your wife and so you go and kick your dog. It's not the dog's fault. Why are you punishing the dog? And everybody's going to be unhappy. It's not going to fix the problem. That's kind of, it's like a little kid throwing a temper tantrum. If you let SunTrax get away with blocking traffic, and whatever they want to see done, you do it, then you can be guaranteed that the next time they're mad about something, which will be tomorrow, they're going to go block the roads again, because it's like it works for them, right? Well, they got really mad about this mine, this copper mine in Panama, and they decided they were going to have a protest. The other group of people that agrees with them about this mine are the environmentalists, and Panama has typically not needed to be super wacky about environmentalist stuff, because it was a lightly populated country with lots and lots and lots of open, just virgin triple canopy rainforest, jungle, and they like to brag that they're one of the world's only carbon neutral countries, because they just don't use enough power or anything like that, and they have so much forest that their forest creates more oxygen than they deplete by whatever they're burning, right? Does that make sense? So I've never really had to be too bad about that. The current president is a WEF, World Economic Fund, liberal, he thinks the best thing he's ever done was lock people down for 10 and a half months for COVID. That tells you everything you need to know about the president, Nito Cortizo, or as my wife likes to call him, Nito Tostito. Suffice it to say that the environmental lobby is gaining steam in Panama. They are very, very upset about this mine in the middle of no place cutting down trees in the jungle. Fine. Look, if that's your thing, have at it. I looked it up, and the total amount of acreage that the mine controls, they didn't buy it, but they leased it, I guess, from the government for like 40 years. The total amount of land that they control is like 17,000 hectares, which comes out to about 0.4% of the total forested landmass in Panama. Less than 1/2% of the total forested landmass in Panama. So it's a rounding error, and they're not cutting down all the trees on all of that land, just a portion of it at a time. And so the actual amount of environmental destruction, if you want to call it that, A, is where nobody can see it. It's out in the middle of nowhere. B, it's not poisoning anybody or anything. C, it's creating 40,000 jobs. And D, it's good for the coffers of Panama. It gives Panama tax revenue with which they can improve the roads and improve the medical care system and improve the lives of Panamanians. All for a little rounding error of destruction that has to happen out in the middle of nowhere. To me, that doesn't sound all that bad, but if you absolutely can't stand, if you want to hug every tree you see and you can't stand to see one single tree get cut down, you think that people are a cancer and a blight on the earth rather than the earth was made for people, well, that's fine. You can think that if you want. I don't care. What I do care is if you want to kidnap me because you're angry about that, because I don't have anything to do with it. And that is exactly what's happening right now. So people all across Panama, some of whom are Suntracks and some of whom are environmentalists, some of whom are just ignorant. They're Indians that have been, sold this bill of goods that their whole way of life is going to go south, and if they allow this mine, and they couldn't tell you where the mine is. They don't know anything about the mine. What the worst ones are the ones who are making videos and putting them up on social media with their phone that requires copper and lithium and cobalt and all these heavy rare earth minerals in order to do that. They don't see the hypocrisy in using a phone that requires those minerals, but not wanting anybody to mine those minerals anywhere in your territory. Specifically, if it's someplace you don't go, you can't see. You would rather put 40,000 people out of work and make sure that none of the trees get cut down. That doesn't, I'm sorry. Not only that, if you think that's not the only cost of this to Panama. Long term, this will hurt Panama much, much more than that. Because about 6% of Panama's GDP comes from the tourism sector, which is actually a big thing in Panama. Tourism is a big component of Panama's economy. And I can tell you that when you shut down the entire country, where literally, if my wife gets sick in the little village in Panama where we live, I'm going to have to send a helicopter to go get her and take her to the hospital because there's no roads open that she can get to the hospital. And they wouldn't let her through. I saw a video yesterday of a woman giving birth in the street because she couldn't get to the hospital. There are old people that are going to die because they can't get their medicines to them. Because you're mad about them cutting down a few trees? So, one of the other problems is Panama only has really one road in the entire country. Almost all of the built-up areas in Panama are along the Pacific coast. Panama actually goes east-west, not north-south. A lot of people think that Panama looks like this, but it actually looks like that. And the canal goes north-south, right? So a lot of people that would normally come to Panama to enjoy the beaches are not going to come because that one highway that takes you to the beaches from the airport is blockaded. Not just right now, but almost all the time. I mean, it's getting to the point where, like I say, you got to check online, you got to call friends in the city, you got to figure out, you got to maybe leave at 3 o'clock in the morning to get to the airport or to get to the hospital or whatever you need to do because these people are always blocking the roads. Now, if the Panamanian government had any spine, and I don't believe it does, but if it did, they could not continue to allow this to happen. They would have to go hard against these protesters and make it stop. Because if they don't, if these protesters succeed at getting the government to renege on the contract that they've signed with this Canadian company, if the protesters succeed at that, you can be certain that this will continue happening over and over and over again to the point where no tourist would ever take the risk to come to Panama for the next 10 years. Easily. People still avoid going to Colombia, even though Colombia is actually statistically safer than Panama now because of the Medellin cartel that ruled Medellin and, terrorism and all the stuff that they did back in the 80s. I've been to Medellin many times. It's a wonderful place. If you had a choice between going to Panama on vacation or going to Medellin on vacation, right now you'd be better off going to Medellin, and you'd definitely be safer as long as you're not involved in the drug trade. I have a lot of friends who love going. Well, I take my wife to Medellin or Cartagena or wherever, whenever I can. Colombia is a wonderful, very cheap place to vacation. It may not stay that way for long because they just elected basically a Hugo Chavez or a Nicolas Maduro clone as their president, a devout communist, and that's not cool. I just saw where he was saying we have to stand up for the Palestinians in this war against Israel. What? So anyway, that's all I've got to say about Panama. Let's take a couple of questions. If anybody wants to ask a question about the the problems in Panama or anything else, go right ahead. There's a bit of a lag, I think, in the questions. So I'm going to scroll up here and see if people asked any other questions first. Yeah, somebody was just in Panama a month ago. Seems to be a bit of that going on around there. Morning from Fresno. Hello, Angela. Disney freak? All right. Well, thank you very much, folks, for the super chats. On this podcast, the purpose of my podcast, for those of you, many of you are new, just want to let you know before we go, on this podcast, the money that I make that is donated to this podcast, we take and we give to people that are in need in the places that I go. So I go to like 25 countries a year. I spend my entire career focusing on crises, wars, and disasters. Everywhere you go, there's people having their worst day ever. And it's frustrating and depressing sometimes to have to be in those places. And so I decided that this gives you a chance. This awesome technology that we have now gives you a chance to not have to be so depressed about what's happening around the world, because now, through the magic of this technology, you can reach through the camera and donate, and the money that we collect here on the Hot Zone will go to help people in need where we are. Normally I will film that and I will let you know what we did with the money. So for example, we just went to Cartagena, Colombia, where there are tens of thousands of Venezuelan migrants who've fled Venezuela and are desperate and very, very poor and sometimes starving. And I have a real heart for single mothers because I'm a men's author. I write books for men. If you haven't got my books, I write like curriculum on manhood for homeschoolers. I write books for teens and 20-somethings on how to get a girlfriend and how to interact with girls, because guys don't know how to do that anymore. They know how to interact with a device real well, but they don't know how to actually talk to a girl face to face. So I've got 10 books in print. You can go look them up by going to chuckholton.locals.com, or you can go to just Google my name. Go to Amazon. They're everywhere. They're out there. You can find my books. But suffice it to say that I have a heart for women whose men have abandoned them. And in Venezuela, it's almost part and parcel of the culture for men to abandon their women. They get a girl pregnant, usually by the time she's 13 or 14, and it's not even a thought that the man would actually provide for that woman and her child. It's just, they just don't. So virtually every woman you meet from Venezuela who is in Cartagena trying to make a living is single mom, has kids at home. Unfortunately, many of these women just don't have anything to sell except their bodies. And so it's a real hotbed of prostitution and AIDS and all the things that go along with that. So we have been going there for years now and trying to save some girls out of that. 15, 14, 13. I found prostitutes who were 11 years old from Venezuela. Unbelievable. And so we try to help them as best we can. We try to get them a place to live. Right now, I think we've got like 11 people living in a house that we pay for in Cartagena, several single mothers and all their kids. And we're trying to basically do like micro grants and go there and help them start a business that isn't prostitution, where they don't have to go downtown at night. Because one other problem they have is if they're not going to be a prostitute, then they're going to go try to sell something to the tourists. And normally tourists are more likely to buy something from a little kid than they are from a 30-something-year-old woman, because they feel sorry for the kid. And so these women have to take their kids down there, and their kids are now being picked up by pedophiles and taken upstairs. And I had one woman tell me, like, I spend most of my time trying to fend off the perverts that are trying to pick up my 9-year-old son and 12-year-old daughter. And so we just can't make a living like that anymore. So we helped her to start like a hot dog stand in a part of town away from the tourists, and we helped another girl with start like a little coffee business, and that comes from the donations that we get here at the Hot Zone. So if you want to donate to the Hot Zone, you can go to chuckholton.locals.com and do it. You can donate through YouTube here with the super chat thing, whatever you like. You can contact me directly if you want to join us on one of these trips. We actually will open them up and take people with us when we go to help people. If you want to go along and go to some very interesting places that's not your typical tourist thing, I wouldn't call it a mission trip, but sometimes it's a fact-finding trip, and it's a way to really get a sense for what it's really like for people that don't have as much as you do. And so if you'd like to come with us, you can contact me, hotzoneholton@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. I try to answer every message I get. I am getting a little overwhelmed with all of them, and that's a good problem to have. But so God bless you all. Thank you so much. Somebody asked a question here about, are the protesters armed? Some of them are. There's been reports of criminal gangs basically going down the lines of cars and taking a bribe, or hey, if you give us $20, we'll let you through the blockade and let you go on, which isn't really helpful because there's going to be another blockade 10 miles down the road anyway. But extorting money from people, that sort of thing. Panama is not a tremendously dangerous criminality from a criminality standpoint. It's not a really dangerous place to live, especially if you don't live in the big city and you're not part of a drug. You don't do drugs. You don't have anything to do with drugs. You stay out of those guys' way, you're fine. We love it. I raise my kids there. It's great. But yes, we have heard of some armed people. Firearms ownership is non-existent in Panama. Actually, Carl, that's incorrect. I appreciate the comment, though. It is possible to get a gun in Panama. I have a gun and legally carry it pretty much wherever I go. They have very good castle doctrine. Getting a gun in Panama is a little more difficult than, say, Indiana or someplace like that. It's about as hard as like Maryland or someplace that is a may issue state. It's much harder than, say, West Virginia, where you just have to be 18 and don't be a felon and you can carry a gun. You don't need a permit. But you have to get an eye exam and a background check and a mental health exam where they ask you some very weird questions about your proclivities and a few other things like that. You got to jump through some hoops. And you have to buy your gun and turn it in and let them fingerprint, do the ballistic fingerprint on it. And then they'll give you a gun. You can get a gun. You can have, like, I think up to 5 guns in Panama. They are from the problem with Panamanian gun laws is that they are very elitist, meaning they make it difficult and expensive to get your permit, and so only people that have money or time to hire somebody to, a lawyer or somebody to do all that stuff can get a gun, and they like it that way. The government likes it that way because then they and all their buddies can have guns, and all those dirty poor people out there can't. The people who really need them because they live in the dangerous neighborhoods can't get a gun. Now, I've been told that they're planning to change that and loosen the restrictions, or at least the costs involved in getting a gun. But so far, that hasn't happened. They had a moratorium on the importation of firearms for 8 years in Panama, and that made the cost of guns go way up because we were limited to whatever supply was actually there. And I think my first gun, I have oh gosh, I just spaced on my gun. I've got a lot of guns. I have a Smith & Wesson 9mm in Panama, and in the States it would be about $700. In Panama it was about $4,000. So that's what I mean by elitist gun laws. The people who can pay $4,000 for a gun are probably living in a safe neighborhood and don't need it that bad. But anyway, it is what it is. Now the prices have come back down because they got rid of the moratorium on importation of firearms, and a Glock that in the States would be $600 is maybe $800 or $900 in Panama, so it's not that much worse. Okay? Any other questions? Hello from South Africa. When you say, Carl, that firearms ownership is non-existent in Panama, you could say that very few people have a gun in Panama legally because of the elitist gun laws. But it is not impossible to get a gun. If you came to Panama as a resident, I'm not a citizen of Panama, I'm just a resident, you could get a gun and you could carry it and you could defend yourself with it if necessary. And they have very good castle doctrine. Okay? So somebody else, hey, thank you for the S. Lowe's, I can't see that, who that is. Thank you for the super chat. That's really kind of you. Okay, I'm going to be on. I need to move to West Virginia. Come on, Emmanuel. Okay. I am very grateful for all of you who are on here. I do have more live hits to do, so if you want to keep your eye on CBN News YouTube channel, here in a little bit, we're going to have a very special episode of the live feed tonight, giving you some updates and some information that really isn't out there yet. Ground invasion soon. We're going to talk about that on the next one.